I feel like we should all say Happy New Year to each other again. I just started recording just after we were all nice to each other. But we will be nice to each other again, I'm sure. Welcome to the CEFACT Global Trust Registry project in 2026. We are recording this meeting and we will generate a transcript from the meeting. The meeting will be held along the normal lines that we held for all of last year, CEFACT's open development process and guidelines for royalty-free products of work and open source approaches. So those haven't changed, remain the same for 2026. I was saying just before we switched the recording on, Lena and I were thinking we basically need to do a kind of where are we and where do we need to get to kind of retrospective to start the year, thinking about what we've built and are building and kind of what the focus needs to be for the next few weeks and months. So that's what we'll do, and we'll welcome your interjections in that as well, as so we sort of pick through what we have. That's really the agenda you can see now, I think, and that's what we kind of will work through today.
Especially John mentioning the deadlines, that we thought we would have more time than we actually do.
We'll reflect
that the plenary will be in May, so. Yes,
so if that hasn't been shared publicly in the prior meetings, we'll certainly share that as we have just now, that there's a kind of updates, I suppose, on the deadlines that we're working to, and a whole bunch of other sort of feedback from the CEFACT bureau. There's the sort of people who steer the CEFACT body about what we need to do. Just a quick reminder on the screen right now of the two meetings we had at the end of December. We had, following on from Harman, your presentation, we had the one from Alex Tweedale. And there's a recording, and I hope you managed to see that, because I think you couldn't attend. So the recording's been made available.
I had 2 weeks holiday, so I spent some time watching that one. No, it was a pity we couldn't join, and my colleague Victor was trying to join, but he had the wrong URL somehow. But no worries.
Yes. I hope I wasn't ignoring his attempt to come in, but I didn't see the sort of ping to say that somebody was trying to get in. The interesting thing, Alina, I noticed is that even in that meeting before the end of December, you were raising kind of sharing that others expressed concerns or interest about how does the European identifier work get aligned with or align with the work we're doing here with the digital identity anchor and grid. So that's I thought I'd highlight that point. Then the next meeting, which is the one I have effectively for my time tomorrow, with a US group, and I think only maybe Sankashan joins me on that one as well, so he tends to bridge both. We were talking about again the European initiatives and how grid is both aligned and distinct from. And I mentioned that the UK government, in the persons of His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, are interested in joining us in a pilot. So I was talking with them at the very end of last year. I haven't yet started talking with them again this year. I think they're all shoveling snow off the streets of London or something. It's got very cold in Northern Europe.
Is that Matthew Audi?
Yes, it is. It's Matt Audi and 2 or 3 others from his team. And yeah, they're I mean, to the point you were just raising hands earlier on about revenue and prices and competition and stuff. Yes, their interest obviously is on customs and tax and duties and so on.
They want to know. They want to know how to get certificates for all the Polish meat that comes into the country.
All the Polish meat that comes.
That's exactly what they're looking at.
That's a level of detail I wasn't expecting. But thank you. There are so many rabbit holes down in these meetings that you could just go down one and spend the whole hour talking about that. I want to indulge quickly, and then I know, Alina, I'd give you the whole stage, and there's a lot for you to go through, so I will give you that.
It's okay, no worries.
Something I saw over Christmas, which interested me. This is an article that's available to you all. I'll see if I can copy and paste the link into our chat. Copy link address. And basically, it's from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation investigative journalist team. And they noticed or rather, it's become known that a group of islands that achieved independence in 1975 from France, so recognized as a sovereign nation by the United Nations, the Comoros Union, has an island called Anjuan or whatever. I can't really pronounce that correctly, I'm sure, but that island has become this this sort of center of fake registrar and fake registrations of companies, licenses. So gambling sites and money laundering and other nefarious activities are coming out of there. And these people are claiming to be a registrar and charging companies fees for registration. So it's a pretty relevant story for the sort of work we're doing. In other words, how would you know as a participant in some trade that this particular body has been registered by a fake registrar? That's exactly the nub of the problem we're trying to solve. So I thought it was pretty relevant. It's I think accessible to all. There's no paywall to access that newsfeed.
This is a really common discussion in general, or like also in Europe, like we now have to accept registrations maybe from Eastern European countries where some Dutch or maybe also Germans say, well, they're not as strict with their onboarding as we are. Whether or not that's true or not, I think now with this UN kind of discussions, you have the same discussion on the global level, right? Like this particular island state is registering. But I think that also fits very nicely with the whole discussion of decentralized trust, right? That means that every individual country or company should be able to still make decisions on their own about what they trust. But that's
both things. Both points are really very important, Harman, and very true. Yeah, that there's a so this story has a the official registrar of the Comoro Union being frustrated that this sort of fake group has created this sort of commercial enterprise, and yet how would you know that the official authority is the official authority? Well, I looked to my esteemed colleague Alina and sort of, well, there's laws that set up the nation state of Comoro Union and you know and so on, so that that would satisfy the how do we find who is the authoritative person. But then you're still right, Harman, whether you choose to trust that registration process is another question. So you know, it could arguably be possible that the non-authoritative registration process was actually more rigorous than the authoritative registration process, possibly. But all we are in this project concerned about are nation state registrars and their authority to register things, and we kind of want to recognize that. And then in phrases that Sankashan's heard me say before, trust is in the eye of the beholder, right? That you decide as a participant whether you trust the thing in front of you or not.
Exactly.
And we don't tell you to trust it. Okay. I want to now hand over to Alina. Now, Alina, you've been looking at these documents and so on. How do you want to take over?
I would like to focus on 3 issues. One of them maybe you will explain us later, which is the relationship, or how you want to call it, compatibility or incompatibility between the initiatives we build on one European initiative we build on one hand, and on the other hand our initiative grid. Because in the last meeting end of December I had in Madrid with my colleagues, one of the main concerns was the initiative we build, which we are leading or co-leading, and I imagine that these concerns will probably be raised by different European countries as well, not only by Spain.
Yep.
And maybe you want to explain, because you sent me a research, really interesting research, that I would like you to explain us a little bit afterwards. So if you want, I can also make a brief explanation of the edits or
Yes,
reviews of documents. How you want to call it? Okay, so on one hand, I proposed to reorder the table of contents. I don't know if you can show us this on screen. You can share it with.
I can. I'll take you there. Now, where I want to take you is to the GitLab site, right? So that's where I want to go to when we talk about that. That's okay. So the source document source documents are inside our docs folder on GitLab. And if we go down here, we've got requirements, we've got digital anchor. So these numbers that we see here are the ones that if we go to the visual presentation, oh, not that one, deliverables are like this. So they render as a web page, but they're the markdown that you saw before. Oh, and I'll make this white so that that's better, so the colors don't jump around. Okay, so this is the oh, Hans, you've already got your hand up, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Go.
If I may ask the question now, I have written down the question to be asked in that session. Where are we editing now? If I want to make edits, where do I go? Do I do them on the GitLab, or will I access?
Okay, I didn't put that slide in here, but I've put it in previous meetings, and I'm happy to repeat it. That the philosophy now is this site here, because of the way things are hosted by the UN and UNICC, they're very much encouraging us to use their GitLab environment that's hosted by UNICC for the sort of master copies of documents. So we can do that. So this is where this particular markdown document is hosted on a GitLab environment by them. And I've got two formats of its presentation. There's a web-based format like this. You can read the web page. And I've also got a PDF generator that's sort of generating PDFs from these things so that we can kind of download a PDF and look at that and do whatever you want to with it. Some documents and some of the content that we've worked on has been a Google Doc. And I've shared, in fact, a link to a Google Doc just now for the research, because we started in Google Drive originally, and we were collaborating there. And for some of us, that's still an easier place to work on than GitLab. And I don't want to prevent people from working on documents if they want to work on documents. So I kind of my preference is let's work in the GitLab space as the master copies if we can. So do raise issues and merge requests and so on. If that's impossible, then you can work on a remote copy on Markdown or Google Doc, and then we'll kind of manually merge back in the changes into the GitLab environment.
We is you or we?
I would love others to help, Hans. You're very welcome to take some keys and work with us. But at the moment, yes, the person of last resort is John at the moment.
But personally, I have been working on the Google document, to be honest. So
that's cool. So if I go to the Google Drive, and that's fine too, by the way. So now we'll see all my Google Drive. But go here. Where am I going? Share drives. Almost everything I've been doing is to do with this project, so it's not a problem. Okay, CEFACT. So there's a Google Drive that you will have access to, which was where we were originally developing all of our files. So Lena, that would be inside this project deliverables folder, is that right?
yes, exactly. So I have been working and focusing on section number 4 for the notes.
This one.
Where
This one here?
exactly. So there we have the governance framework, and we have merged as well in this document the eligibility requirements.
Yep. It hasn't been modified since the 27th of November, though, Alina. So you have.
Not that I know. No, not that I know. This one.
Okay. Okay. So you're reviewing. Are you reviewing a downloaded copy, or are you?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Even
That was-
more complexity.
That was easier for.
Yeah, if
So
it were
we-
possible to edit directly, I'd encourage that. But carry on, please.
Okay, yeah. So then we should edit it here. So first, I downloaded the copy, and I was working on the download, and then we will have to modify this Google document or the other GitLab version. So we have here a table of contents, as we can see.
Mhm.
What I proposed for the moment is to reorder this table of contents, because when we merged the first section regarding eligibility requirements in this document, we placed it in the annex number, in the second annex, if we can see it. So
Yeah, we did.
now I was replacing these eligibility requirements in this fourth section, number 4. And I don't know if you have the document that I sent you yesterday, so where I propose this reordering of this table of contents that makes more sense from my point of view.
So that was an email, I think, with a number of suggestions in it, not a sort of a full document with the actual document section headings. Was Lena dropped off?
He's gone, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, wait till she comes back. Where I want this to go, obviously, is I'm going to want to go back to this document, which when I did the work back in November, December, made an effort to sort of faithfully reflect all the structure of the Google Doc. So you'll see it has Annex 2 and it has that structure. That's the same as what we're looking at here. That one with this one. Sankashan, yes, please.
John, I wanted to suggest, if Alina is working on a downloaded copy of the document, would it be a good idea for us to wait until she's done and then kind of synchronize the markdown on the GitLab and the Google version with whatever changes he has?
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to try and do interim updates and stuff.
Piecemeal merges would be terribly difficult to maintain across.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
Documents.
I agree. And further to that, what I want to actually suggest when Alina comes back is that I would rather say download the markdown here of this document, because I'm going back to my preference to treat these markdown documents in GitLab as the master copy, and give that copy to Alina and say, look, work on that. Don't work on a download in Word of a Google Doc that was of several generations ago. Work on this and give me back the updates on that. So that's where I'll take that conversation when I can.
Can we all work on GitLab?
Yes, yes and no, Hans. Of course, technically yes, and also technically no, because some of us aren't experienced enough in GitLab to.
And I'm one of those, but that situation has come up so often now that I think, hey, it may be worthwhile just taking that learning step and then be done for good. Because it reduces the complexities that we're talking about now a lot. Yeah, and Sankashan, your proposals go into the same direction. I mean, it just adds complexity. So, and the only case left is when you sit on a plane and you're offline, a situation that is about to disappear, where it would make sense to hold a copy locally.
But yes. Yeah, I agree. We'll be back in a second, Alina. We're just getting geeky. But you would clone the repo though, Hans, and you'd be working on a local copy on the plane, mate. And then you'd do a commit and push back, and you'd be dandy when you landed.
I wish I sat on planes more often.
It's sort of. I have unfortunately deep dived more than I ever expected to over the last 6 months into this whole GitLab thing. And all I can say is that for all of us, if you are running want to learn about a thing, and you've got either Copilot, ChatGPT, or Gemini Pro next to you, there is nothing that you can't learn. Yes. You just have a dialogue with this supercomputer next to you and ask it, like, I want to do this. How do I do that? And it goes, oh, you do this. You go, oh, okay, I'll do that. And you can build anything. Alina, what we were talking about was version control and sort of problems about drift. So I think all the changes you're proposing are very good, but I want those changes to be made on the current version that comes from the Markdown document, not the Google Doc that may have drifted.
Not on the Google document, but straight or directly here.
Yeah. So there are two ways to do this. Okay. The one that Hans was proposing we should all consider and ideally adopt, which is that we directly edit the documents, because the way this whole system works is very strict configuration of version control. So even if anybody made a terrible, horrible mistake, you can just unwind it.
Just
Right.
to track the edits that people are doing.
Yeah, every single edit's checked, verified, and all sorts of stuff. That's what it's for. That's what it does.
So the proposal is to cut out Google Docs and all other presentation layers that somebody would be working on to just work on one place and everybody.
That's my. So, now, I don't deny, people are very busy and they've got other jobs to do as well as a pro bono work for the CEFACT. So I'm willing to kind of concede that we can do something like download the markdown. So I'll do it right now. We'll download the markdown. That'll give me this markdown in a sort of file here. And if I double click, I can now edit the markdown, right? And you can edit markdown in a number of different editors. It's just it is actually just a sort of markup text thing. I've got one that I've got running now that I edit things with. But basically, it feels like you're editing a Word document. Then you can either edit it like I'll show you. This is it in a come on, drag over there. There we go. This is it in an application that does markdown sort of as a WYSIWYG, like what you see is what you get. But it can also show you the source code. So that's what the raw text looks like in markdown. So all this thing, all what we're talking about moving appendices from one place to another. So this is Appendix 2. We can sort of see all the numbers here, and you could just select all that, cut that, paste it back into the document further up, and all those sort of things. So you can just muck around, and once you've finished doing that, we can then basically push this back into the GitLab environment, and it will say, okay, there's some changes. These are the changes. Are those okay? And you accept them. So that's what I propose we do. If you can't edit inside the environment, the other way to edit in the environment, you can see I've got an edit button tantalizing me here. I can edit the single file directly in the browser. So I can sort of logged into GitLab on the UNICC space. I can now edit the file directly, or I can edit a bunch of files with this whole thing of web integrated development environment. I've said too much already, but I'll say one more thing. the generally intended workflow is that you work on a local copy of the environment. So this is my file space that I have locally on my PC. Okay, so I've got Git repos, so I've got repositories that I'm working on, and this is the one we're looking at. So this is my local copy of that document. So if I go into Docs and then go into Documents, I will find number 4, which is that thing. That's my local copy of the same file. So the normal way of working is that I would edit this when I'm happy with my edits, because I can see what they look like, because I can kind of build the site locally. I then go, oh, that's great. I'm now going to push this back up to the main site online and make effectively a request for merge. And then if we set it up a certain way, that can be reviewed and approved, and off it goes. So that's the normal life cycle that people on Git expect people to follow. Is you kind of have your local copy, you work on it. When you're happy with it, you kind of push it back up. And there's all sorts of other things about forks and branches, but fundamentally that's the kind of process. But for this, that big document that you want to edit, Alina, I think we just give you the document that's current. You do the edits, and we suck it back in.
Otherwise, I will go crazy just listening all this.
And I don't want you to go crazy, because I think a crazy Alina won't be as productive as a sane Alina. So I think
or maybe not so sympathetic.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if that's okay, what I'll do is I can provide you
because I'm Gemini, just like the Google engine, and we've got 2 faces.
Yes. Well, anyway, I'll send you the basically take a copy of this file and send that to you in a format that you can then edit, and then I'll kind of pull it back in again, right?
Okay, we have to make it as easy as possible for everybody.
Yeah. And that I guess is the process we can follow for any individual that's taken a kind of put the hand up saying, I'd like to edit this chunk of the work. I can't work on GitLab, I find it too difficult, I don't have a login, whatever it is that's the problem, we then give them a copy of the file or files they want to work on.
Because
they do their work.
it's just that I have the feeling that most UniC experts are used to work with Google Documents or to edit the documents.
I have a bit of scar tissue about all this because the UNECE, CEFACT, collaborative CEFACT environment, CUE, is actually based on Atlassian. Yes. And Confluence, which is fine as well. It's just another one of these spaces, but they don't use it very much, and it's not very reliable. So we've moved to a Git environment, and yes, people like Sankashan, I'm sure Hans and Harman and others on this call are used to working in Google environments, as I am. I kind of don't care anymore. I just want to make progress.
UNECE's Atlassian environment is totally unmaintained, as it appears to me. Yes, they have no one keeping it up to date, and so it's dead.
Yeah, I've been running a robotic availability check on that site for the last year, and it's about 85% available. It typically it's terrible, and it typically goes down during the hours that I would normally want to work, because my time of wanting to work is the US sort of midnight and 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. So that's when they bring it down. So no, it is unfortunately useless. Whereas this UNICC environment has 99.9 plus availability, so it's fine. It works okay. So that's okay. So Alina, you wanted to explain to us that, and I think it's right, we should take the sections that, I'll try and do it on this document here. So this is the markdown version rendered as a web page, but it's the same thing basically as the Google Doc we were looking at. So this is what we did. We put a whole bunch of requirements about eligibility into an annex because we weren't thinking too hard about how to incorporate them. But if we scroll further up here, there is another existing section in the document which talked about eligibility requirements for participants. So we want to rationalize this and make sense of that. That's not very sensible. Let's make sense of it.
Yes, so like the main adjustment I proposed is structural and normative clarification. Like I have moved the substantive eligibility requirements for the authoritative registers from this Annex 2 into a dedicated normative section, which is number 4, as well in the section number 4. And repositioned it, the Annex as a supporting non-normative instrument.
Okay, cool.
So the reason is straightforward. The eligibility criteria define who can and who cannot participate in the grid. So in my viewpoint, they operate as a core admission gate and not as an optional guidance.
Yes, they are super important. I can't overemphasize how important those are. And they actually go to that story we're talking or looking at about the island off of Madagascar, in fact, is where the Anjuan Island is. And that would be one of the criteria we want to make sure that our eligibility requirements would filter out the fake registrar and allow in the proper registrar of Comoros. So that's a necessary thing. Hans, are you okay? We didn't drop you off. That was just your end, was it? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Still there?
That's another annoyance here of the environment that we're using. What I did is I tried to check in my favorites if I have that GitHub listed. I left the browser window and I was disconnected. Not at all what I intended, but it just happened. I threw myself out by making an action in my browser. So
what I have, so here's we'll go to that last slide for a second. So this is the that's a bit more detailed. Okay. I've got on the, if I show you the, let's go another tab, another tab on my machine. So we have all of us access to the groups.io email list for the project. So this group has a homepage which lists all of the places, right? So that gives you the link to go to, okay, this is where you find the published web pages for the document. This is where you can work on the GitLab environment hosted by UNICC and so on. So those links are there. if you can remember where the project web pages are, they're also on the project web pages. So it's a bit of a catch-22. If you can't find the project web page, you can't find the links. But this website has a whole bunch of the sort of links and other things in it about where to find stuff. And as Alina found out this morning, the project calendar is still the same. So the project calendar is still hosted on Google. I don't have and Google Meet is still our platform because we aren't given a video conferencing facility by the UN to use. So we're using what I have effectively freely available to me. And that's fine. It does a fine job of recording. Okay, so there's some structural changes to do this document number 4. Any other documents, Alina, that you know that you want to work on?
No, because I think we first have to finish this editing this section and then move forward to.
I would love. 2 thumbs up. Let's
move
get
forward to the third one regarding digital identity anchor, which is as well very important.
Yep. Okay.
Maybe Hans would also have a few things to add up or to suggest.
I'm sure I have.
So this is the what you're referring to, document number 3, the digital identity anchor, legal meaning and data structure. That one. Okay. So that's its markdown, and this is its rendered page. What this document has is a consideration about what is the legal meaning if a registrar decides to issue a digital identity anchor. And I think, if I am correct, Alina, a lot of what you put in here was sort of reflecting on UN CITRAL, MLETR, kind of the idea of the digital record is the same legal weight meaning as the physical record, kind of concepts. And that's kind of that's what would be put inside here as a sort of a recommendation. But what I think is true, Alina, this is where I do need you to help here. We might write our suggestion, our recommendation, our thinking about what the legal significance is of a DIA. If a registrar in the world, let's say Colombia, decides to issue a digital identity anchor, unless they've somehow accepted the United Nations laws around, or the UN CEFACT laws, and embedded that into their legislature, it means whatever they say it means. We might have recommended that it means this, but it's up to them in a way to confirm, yes, for us it means that as well. Is that right? It's like an implementing act kind of thing.
Well, I mean, starting from the fact that the UNICE recommendation are soft law, unlike those from the European Union, which are hard law, means that they are not mandatory. They have to be a part of they have to be developed by the by the member states, and once they are a part of their national law, then they become mandatory. But to begin with, no, and they can do this as they please it, being honest.
So that's what I understood, and I think that's really important. It makes me think about a possible proposal to the UNTP, the protocol group that managed the digital identity anchor spec, because what we're doing here is recommending to them how they might modify the spec. One thought is any issuer of a DIA should provide a link or reference to the legal meaning of that issuance by them. So we would love them to have adopted, when these things are final, that the rules and regulations that are inside this document say as the basis upon which they've issued the DIA. But they might have their own interpretations, their own thing. But what should be the case is that any DIA that has been issued, you could find out under what legislature it was issued by the issuing authority, that you can go find a link, if you like, to the legislation. So you could find out, what does it mean then? This one from Colombia, what does it mean? That's what I think might be the case. So in our spec for the DIA, wherever that is in this document, it may not be in this document, maybe another one, there would be a part of the the JSON members would be a link to the regulatory kind of context in which it's been issued. Is that... Oh, Harman, you've got your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No, but I think this is a good discussion. I think this also kind of is a good one to kind of connect to maybe your question, Alina, about how does, or the question that a lot of people raise in Europe, like how does this whole GDPR thing relate to, for instance, the new EU ID? But I think it's really nice fit. That's the whole thing. I think we have to try to be super clear on this, because, and just like it can be a good fit for the EU ID, it could also be a really good fit for any other ID from any other legislation, like Canada or whatever, or even such kind of funny ocean states, island states, right? But the whole idea is that, for instance, in Europe, we now kind of have this law, which already exists, EIDAS, that actually kind of gives a law about what digital seals or signatures are kind of legally binding to sign a document. And that all is kind of connecting with particular crypto, right? So in Europe, we have our trust list. So there's a combination of a technical trust list, which exists, right, today, combined with a law. And both are connected. And I think the idea of the kind of really cool technical idea of the UNTP DIA is that there is this concept of a decentralized identifier that can be mapped with all kinds of digital identity anchor credentials that reflect one of those identifiers. So in the EU, for instance, a Dutch company will have on the one end in the future EU ID credential, which is mapped with their DID, and in UNTP terms that's a DIA, but it could also have a LEI, legal entity identifier, or and I think that's
the VAT identifier.
Exactly, the VAT, it could be anything. So it's
and
literally like an endless list of identifiers, in theory, right? But for the governments, the regulators at the moment, they only concern, which is fine, for instance, in Europe, the EU ID. Great. So I think, for instance, in Holland, also what we demonstrated before the holidays, we already kind of were experimenting with this concept for a couple of years, where we said, okay, let's work together with the tax office, work together with the Chamber of Commerce, also see if we can work together with GS1, for instance, because each of them have their own identifier, and they're kind of having these religious wars about what that's crucial. And I think we now end up in a situation where we say, okay, we all realize there's different ones, but they are kind of mapped via this decentralized identifier. And it's a technical thing, right? So maybe people don't really need to know about it, but that concept is the basis of the UNTP DIA. So I think we probably have to try to make that really simple story, less than what I was doing now in the last 2 minutes. But I honestly think it can be quite simple.
I love the story. I love the graph structure that you just drew in my mind. It is a graph structure, and probably we should just make an illustration for other people to understand the concepts that we have in our minds. And you know what? I'm going to start this illustration right after the meeting. Cool. It is a graph structure, and a graph consists of nodes, which are the single identifiers, and then edges, which are kind of the relations between these identifiers. Let's just draw it and take it from there, because if we have an illustration, we can show that to people and they understand what we're doing, and then they'll follow us. And they'll be able to raise their concerns in a structured fashion, and we can work with it.
Fantastic, Hans. Please do that. We could finish the meeting early so you can get more time. No, I'm kidding.
I think that would be very, very helpful, because as I mentioned before earlier, the member of the board of my organization, they're mainly concerned if in the event that we will create a digital identity anchor, they consider it as a new identifier on the market. And they said, literally, we already have many identifiers. we have the European identifier and we have to use the European identifier. So is there going to exist any sort of hierarchy among all these different identifiers? Then one we will have to use, this, the other. How does it go?
And Alina, I think they're really valid questions, because I totally agree with those remarks. But I think the good answer is that we can. I think from how I understand this project, guys, so I think we may not be 100% the same, but I honestly think we can address all of these concerns, and I think there's a perfect match possible.
I absolutely agree, Hansan, Harman, and Alina. Although the word hierarchy worries me. It worries me because it implies this one of them is supreme and more than the others.
Exactly.
Yeah. They see it as a pyramid, as like.
It's not. It's not. We see it as a decentralized mesh. It's not a pyramid.
Yes.
It's a set of bilateral relationships in a graph form, if you like. What does one country accept from another? That's what it is.
But you could say that every country is sovereign. That's the basic thing. The basic thing is there is a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of 195 nation states that are sovereign and can have their own law. And then there's this combined digital implementation of that law, and that's what we are all basing this on.
So, I want Hans to do what he's saying, and anybody else that wants to kind of create explainers. I'm going to be trying to do so as well, and why I'm excited by this is I now know the tools that are available to all of us to do this sort of stuff are far more powerful than they were 3 or 4 months ago. So you can easily put the whole of the content we currently have on our GitLab space and ask Gemini 3.0 Pro to generate a video explainer that runs for 6 minutes. And don't laugh, because it would be awesome. I've impressed my senior civil servant sister, who's just retired from Her Majesty's government in the UK, who's a VAT inspector of some note, with its ability to explain the UK VAT system. It's phenomenal. And
in a 6-minute video, I don't buy that.
I'll show it to you if you like. But the thing to remember is no one single explainer will suit all audiences. So we need to think about the stakeholders that we need to impress or influence or inform about this. So there are regulators and registrars, and there are participants and companies, and there are software, and each of them has a different perspective on the problem and its resolution and the benefits that they might receive. So I actually think we need a suite of explainers that address the interests of each audience member.
I agree, John, but I think one of the cool things of this group, small group, is that it's a diverse group, right? I think many of us have a different background. And I think if we would be able to understand each other in the upcoming weeks, that would be fantastic, right? Then each of us can explain to our own kind of.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I should go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I already started to draw that graph structure, and I'd like as many different identifiers for subjects, so legal entities, to be put on it. So if I know 10 of them, but if you could add those that you know about, like or debt IDs of the car industry or whatever, just throw them at me without any greetings or whatever. Just send me a mail and throw these identifiers in. So I'll put them in on that graph. The next thing I wanted to ask, Alina, you talked about a pyramid structure that somebody has in mind. If you've got material about that, just let me have it.
Okay. They were actually talking about a sort of a hierarchy.
A pyramid is a hierarchy. That's how I understood it.
Well, this is how I saw it. When they referred to a hierarchy, then I saw it as a pyramid.
So it was a question, right, Alina? They were asking about what the hierarchy is or not.
I refer to my colleagues that are working on the WeBuild project.
So it's more of an assumption on their part, right? That a preemptive assumption that there's some sort of hierarchy, and it's not necessarily true.
Be more critical. The wrong perception.
Yeah. So I want to draw. I don't want to. we've got like 10 minutes, and as I said before, we could go down for hours. But I want to give more material for us all to share and have a look at and tease. So a few days ago, Lena and I were catching up for the first time, and she reminded me of the sort of challenges being faced by the multiple projects that are going on in Europe and other parts of the world, and kind of how do these things align. So I drafted this. I'll make it wider. I can see on my screen it's a bit wider, 150 maybe.
Just on Google Drive, right, John?
Yeah, this is on Google Drive, this particular document. And it's available to you. It's at the first link I shared at the beginning of this chat. I didn't, whatever reasons, it doesn't matter. Because the origin of this is Gemini Pro, which is a Google AI engine. So basically, I gave it this sort of preamble. Right, we're working on this project. It's doing this thing. My fellow colleague is working also is a Spanish registrar working on the WeBuild consortium. Here's that link. Blah blah blah. There's some concerns about how these things will work together. There's also a thing called life, and then it basically give it the challenge about how might these things all work together. So it's come up with that was the first time the first run I did was a simple question answer response. So it then gave me this sort of response about the different kinds of objectives, our audiences and governance, areas of positive alignment, areas of where you might get some conflict or tension, and had a typo by the look of it, and then recommendations for mutual support. Now that's about a page and a half probably of response. That was okay, but not a particularly impressive response. So I asked it then to do a thing called deep research, which is where you basically expected to go away and behave like a PhD student doing a research project. So I asked it to produce a research plan based on the same sort of premise. This is the research plan it came up with. And then I said, okay, run that plan. And it's come up with this document, which is, where am I now, on page 7 of 21. So this is about 15 pages long or so. And this is the one that was being referred to by Lena earlier on around the sort of interesting observations that it's making about WeBuild, about Life LEIs, and about other initiatives. But it finishes with how, at the end of this, other than data tables, it finishes with the sort of opportunities for alignment, the way to describe how these things can work together. So as I think Harman said, if I read the second paragraph, the first sentence, the path to a functional global digital economy lies not in choosing one winner, pyramid, hierarchy, but in weaving these threads together, mesh, grid, graph. So in fact, it actually, in this spontaneously suggested that your work, Alina, in Registradores is where this particular weaving might happen, because you're in the WeBuild consortium. You're working on the UN CEFACT projects.
Exactly.
You're in Europe. There's a bunch of reasons why it works. So that's kind of exciting. It's an example of the kind of and it's got, obviously at the end of this, it's got a bunch of data points, but it's also got a whole bunch of the sources it used to generate this this insight, and none of them are made up. None of them are hallucinations.
Okay.
It doesn't really happen now. Not since like last year. I suppose AI has kind of moved on. So that's a really important thing, I think. And it goes to this whole ethos we have of explaining this project in ways that make people realize it's actually for the common good and not a competitor, if you like, for other initiatives. That I thought was important to sort of draw our attention to. The other work I'd love to share, particularly with a whole bunch of people on this call, is this work I was doing in the background on the pilots. So I created this whole environment, sandbox, that we can play with as pilots. Now I know that people like Harman and Hans and others already have built significant things or have significant things available to them. What I was trying to do was produce within the GitLab space on UNICC a kind of prototype environment. So a prototype is, if you, it's a phrase, you're probably all too young, but there was a device called the Palm Pilot that came out many years ago now, and it was a thing.
What do you mean? What do you mean too young? I've had a Palm Pilot.
I'm just being polite, Hans.
I also had one, John.
Okay, so it's a personal
I had
information
several.
manager, PIM. Okay, so a Palm Pilot, when it first came out, had things like a calendar, contacts list, and to-dos and some other things in it, right? And the person who invented the Palm Pilot started off by carrying a small wooden block with a piece of paper wrapped around it and in his shirt pocket, because he was an engineer, so he had a shirt pocket. And whenever he arrived at a meeting and would have wanted to have used a thing called a Palm Pilot, which didn't exist yet, he took his wooden block out and wrote on it. And what he was doing was learning what the functionality needed to be of a device that he wanted to create. So what we have with the pilot infrastructure on the GitLab environment that I've created is a prototype. It's a wooden block with paper wrapped around it, but what it lets us do is play with, if a registrar manages their own information and we pull that information into the grid, how might that work, and how might we make sure that the information we've pulled in has been signed by them using their keys. And so we've verified the authenticity of the data. We've reflected it in our database, but if we go down, they don't go down. Their data is still sovereign. All these sort of ideas are part of what the pilot plays with, and it uses GPG cryptography and whatever else. The fundamental implementation isn't what the grid would finally be, but the pilot lets us play with the concepts, and it's what I will hope that the HMRC and other participants might start playing with as a way of getting familiar with the ideas, right? So that documentation, all that stuff is in the About Pilots, including the architecture and the harvester model and all this sort of stuff. That was all sort of done over the holidays with my supercomputer friend. And it kind of is running now, running about every hour. What that does is pulls in information. So if I go into Pilot Grid, I've created fictitious registrars, but with no legal significance. I'm not running regulated gambling or unregulated gambling or anything else. I've got a country called Atlantis, and a country called Gondal, and a country called Ruritania, and one called Genovi. These are all fictitious countries from works of fiction or films, and they're all registrars in those places.
Why don't you ask one of your LLM friends to create a world map of the world you drew up here?
Well, that would be a multiverse, mate, because they're on different planes of us. Some of them are fiction in writing, and some of them are fiction in film. So they're somewhat different places. Anyway, it's a thing that works, and those that are technically minded, please have a look at the sort of pilot architecture design and some decisions and stuff. But yes, a good reminder, Harman, it's time to go, mate. That was a lot we went through. Quick reminder, I will send you, Alina, a copy of the Markdown document that is most current for you to work on, and then you can send back to me and I'll do the mergy process.
Yes, please. That was my main concern, actually.
Okay, I will do that. And then we can move on after we've done that to the other areas that need work too. And Hans, I very much look forward to your explainer. And yes, we'll share whatever we can in terms of put an email out on the Groups IO message or Slack channel or something, so people know that weren't in on the call. That's it, really. That we're looking forward to. Oh, so quick on the first point Alina said. The plenary is in May, the sort of 3rd or 4th week of May, 21st of May. We need to have documents ready for then. We won't need them to be ready 100 days before the 20th of May, which would be the case if this was a full-blown recommendation. But we do want to have documents probably by the end of February in a pretty good shape.
Is that going to be in Geneva?
Yes. Yes, it's in Geneva. And it's the same week as the Entity Identity Conference, European Identity Conference for Cup and Jacol. Cup and Jacol starts at the beginning of the week, and I think the CEFACT plenary is at the end of that week.
Okay.
But Cup and Jacol's in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we okay?
Right.
I'll stop now. I'll just brutally stop. There's so much more we could carry on talking about. Thank you very much.
Okay, John, so you're going to send me the document to work on, okay?
Yes, I am, Alina. I am. Definitely.
Thank you.
It will happen in a few minutes. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening all day.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you very much.